What is up, everybody? I'm Matt Pete. You're listening to the Matt Pete Marketing Podcast. And today I've got Lauren Clemett all the way from Brisbane. Now, at 8 years old, Lauren was told that she had word blindness and would never be able to read or write properly. Yet she went on to become a 5-time best-selling author, working in world-leading ad agencies and being recognized as an international award-winning Neuro Branding expert, using her dyslexia disability as her greatest asset, helping entrepreneurs understand how the brain sees brands. She is now the co-founder of the Audacious Agency, where she helps entrepreneurs around the world to package and leverage their brand to stand out and be well-known, well-paid, and wanted. And on top of all of that, she is also a keen sailor, golfer, and vodka quality control expert. I love it. Lauren, thank you so much. Nice.
It's not vodka at this time of the morning for me, unfortunately, just water.
Yeah, you in Brisbane, we were just talking for everybody out there. Listen, it's 4 o'clock for me and 7 a.m. for Lauren. And Lauren, you got up at what time this morning?
Just 5 a.m. to go to the gym and get that thrashed out before we get started today. Yeah, absolutely.
Just 5 a.m. I'm horrible. I can't remember the last time I got up at 5 a.m. So,
but it's light here, you see. In Queensland, it's light at 4 a.m. So you might.
Oh, really?
Yeah, crazy time.
That's different then. Yeah, it's not light here at 4 a.m. here. It's.
Well, we're only just getting to the end of our summer here, so you're coming up to spring, aren't you? Isn't it getting a bit warmer now? Yeah,
yep.
Awesome.
Yep. So you're about to go into some cooler weather.
Yeah, although cooler for us is still probably only 70, 80 Fahrenheit. So it's our winters aren't that bad.
What's hot?
Hot is 110 would be hot.
Ugh, man. So Lauren, what's your marketing passion?
My marketing passion is actually neurobranding. So it's something that's a relatively new science. It's been around for about maybe 10 years. And it's all about understanding how the brain sees brands. And when I use the word sees, I use it sort of loosely. It's how the brain understands and recognizes brands and how we have an instant and a visceral reaction to the brands that we know, like, and trust. And it's just been really interesting. I only just discovered neurobranding myself about 15 years ago. And I met up with a guy called Peter Stahl, who's sort of the leading neurobranding guy in the world, and he's from Europe, but he lives in Melbourne now in Australia, which is hilarious. So I have managed to speak to him and learned a lot about what it is and the science behind it and so on. And I once asked Peter, actually, I said, look, should I go to university? Should I go and get a proper, certification or a qualification or a diploma or something in this before I start, really talking about it? And he did what you did. He went and looked at what I'd done and where I'd worked and said, actually, you'd have to unlearn so much of what you already know. And probably you'd be better as a lecturer than a student. So I just went, okay, great. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. And he's been fantastic, actually. Great support.
That's awesome. So neuro branding, can you give me like an example of that?
Okay, awesome. So it's when you, for example, if you have children and if they are in the back of your car at some stage and you're driving down the road and they see even just the slightest hint of the McDonald's logo, the golden arches, they don't even need to see the whole lot, just a tiny part of it. They will be begging you to stop because they want the ice creams, they want the fries, they want to, they're ready to go and play. They don't need to see everything. They don't even need to know. They don't need to see an ad or the prices or anything. They don't even need to know if the place has got a place to play or anything at all. They just go, McDonald's, I want that. So that's the neurobranding science. It's being able to create an image inside people's minds, but more importantly, something that's attached to emotionally that gets you to already instantly like, know, and trust a brand, even without having to be told anything about it. So it's creating that real imprint in people's brains and in their psyche that they just see brands without even having to be told about them.
Gotcha. Okay. So you're saying that, like, I have a couple of brands that come to my mind, like Disney World. My wife grew up going to Disneyland and Disney World. And we started going there about 6 years ago for like my first time. And we kept going. And now it's like, they have all of these different workshops they put on. It's like, I've never been, but I know that it's good quality because I know Disney. Like, me and my wife got married at Disney. We know, we know their quality. So we like it. it's outstanding. So we trust it. And another one that comes to mind is ClickFunnels.
Yes.
I use their software, and they pitched a thing. I was at their 2 Comma Club live conference a couple weeks ago.
Brilliant.
And did you go to that?
No, of course not. But I mean, we can't travel at the moment, but I saw photos and videos and I saw all sorts of stuff. So
yeah, they did a virtual one, which is like it was like a replay of one they did last year. So it was the same information as last year, but I didn't go to the one last year. So it was perfect for me. But they were selling a thing called 2 Comma Club X coaching, basically like a hold your hand, like coaches sit down. Here's what you have to do to make your business work. Here's, what's not going to work, that kind of thing. And it was $2,500 a month. Now their software for their entry program is only $100 a month. So it's kind of a jump. But I know if I were able to afford that, I would totally do it, because everything they put out is so value packed. Have you ever used ClickFunnels before?
We have. I've used ClickFunnels, and I've also got clients who use ClickFunnels and love it. So I use different software for different reasons. But it is that ability to have loyal raving fans for your brand. And you don't have to, this is the thing, Matt, it's so hard these days with marketing. It's something I'm sure we'll talk about a lot today. Back in the 1970s, and I lived in the 1970s, so I'm relatively old and I can remember these things. Our brains were being exposed to about 500 branded messages a day. That's it, 500. Today, it's closer, and I just did the research again, it's closer to 10,000 branded messages a day.
Whoa.
So our brains are just being totally bombarded with all this information. Now, our brains haven't really evolved a hell of a lot more since caveman days. We have, but not hugely. Yeah, we still use the same, the amygdala for our fear center, and we have the frontal cortex for making all our decisions. There's all sorts of really cool things about our brain that does automatically, but it does work the same way it's always worked. So to just be bombarded with information, what happens mostly is we don't see half of it. It just gets filtered out because our brains can't cope. So that's why neurobranding is so important. And as a brand or a marketer, if you understand how neurobranding works, you can make sure that your brand stands out from the rest. You can make sure that it connects, that it engages, that it resonates, but more importantly, that you are finding your raving fans out there and you're connecting with them properly, so that not only do they know, like, and trust you, but they're doing what you just did. They're telling everybody else, hey, ClickFunnels is awesome. It's good quality. Disneyland's amazing. It's so incredible. That's what they are hoping will happen, is that you'll grow these great little tribes and communities, and you'll share that word of mouth. So it's word of mouth's probably, well, it is. It's the best form of marketing because of 3 reasons. 1, it's free. 2, it's third-party endorsement. It's somebody else saying how good it is, not you. And thirdly, it's ongoing. It's like a ripple effect. Your uncle's brother's cousin's niece's nephew tells somebody, So if you can get that word of mouth marketing, that tribal, visceral, but really viral stuff happening for your brand, it cuts down on your expenses and your need to be, spending that Coca-Cola level of budget with your marketing.
Absolutely. I love that thought process, that thinking when it comes to marketing too. Like if you can get that word of mouth built up. I had a video production business where I did a lot of weddings, and a lot of my leads came through word of mouth.
Referrals. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. And like you said, I think the biggest part of that, at least from what I've seen, is that third-party recommendation. Because it's the same reasons why testimonials are so important on websites and things.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's that evidence that you actually are good at what you say you're good at. So there's things like there's testimonials, reviews, and becoming a best-selling author. So not just writing a book, but having a best-selling, having a top podcast that's won awards. Entering awards is a big thing you can do to add to your credibility. So you've got logos, getting media coverage, so that you can say, hey, as seen on Fox or Forbes or whatever, so all of those things just give people a feeling, a sense of the fact that your brand is real, it's tangible, and you've got something that of value that they can trust a little bit more. And like I say, it's third-party endorsement. It's not you saying it, it's somebody else saying it. Absolutely.
Awesome. I am loving the direction this episode's headed already, but I want to go ahead and jump in real quick to our pod deck question. So for anybody who listens, watches, whatever, they know I always like to start off somewhere with a pod deck question. So I'm just going to draw a random, let you show, I'm showing you it's random, pulling out the middle there.
I'm excited.
Here we go. Here we go. All right. When were your parents? Oh, no, I don't want to do that one. I've done that one before. I try to pull them out and they get mixed back in there. Here, I'm going to try one more. I did that one on Jody Krangle's episode. If anybody's listening along, it was the same exact card. What are the odds out of this entire deck? Let's see. What is something you like that most people don't?
Ooh, I like risk, which is a bit sort of scary for most people. So in my spare time, I go race sailing, and I should be sailing today, but the weather's pretty awful today here in Australia. It's actually raining and not very nice today. But so I'm normally on the bow of a 54-foot racing yacht. And I'm in my 50s, so I'm not a young person. So, but I'm out there normally airborne and doing all sorts of crazy. That's the most dangerous part of the boat to be. That's if somebody's going to get lost overboard, it's normally off the bow. So that's where I am. But I skydived when I was 50 on my 50th birthday. I'm about to do it again for my daughter's 20th. Yeah, I just, for whatever reason, I seem to be pretty fearless. So whereas most people have fear and not quite sure what to do with it.
That's amazing. Oh my, see that kind of stuff. I like to think I would do it, but you get me up in a plane and you're like, all right, you're going to jump out of this now. It's a completely different story. I can't imagine what
perfectly
that
good airplane and you're about to jump out of it. Yeah,
exactly.
I'm doing it again. So that's a bit sad.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy. So that probably helps a lot with the entrepreneurship stuff. When you get into that, you're probably like, yeah, this is fine. I'm not going to potentially hit the ground at a free fall.
Yeah. A business fear is like nothing, you know?
Exactly. It's like you said, it's not life or death at that point. Literally, the other two things you mentioned could be life or death.
Yep. This is easy stuff.
All right, Lauren. So what's something you see people do in their marketing that makes you cringe?
The biggest thing I see that really makes me go, it's more anger than cringing, I think, because I just think there's so many better ways to do it. I think most people try to be everything to everyone. And that's probably the thing that makes me just go, come on, guys, there's a better way of doing this. So it's quite obvious that they haven't thought about their strategy. They haven't thought about what they want the world to see them as a brand. They're not thinking about their target audience. They're just going, oh, something's happened. Somebody's done something on TikTok or somebody's done something on Insta and we should copy them, or it's Mother's Day tomorrow or it's Memorial Day next week. And they just quickly jump on and knee-jerk reaction and do something. And they really haven't thought properly about it. And I see it all the time. They just get out there and do stuff without really thinking about it. And there's a saying in New Zealand that goes along the lines of, you can't help every Mary in the dairy. And that's, the trouble is the minute you try to be everything to everyone, you end up just wasting your time and money. And you end up doing what I call WOFTAM. I don't know if you've heard of WOFTAM before, Matt. Okay, WOFTAM. It stands for waste of flipping time and money. Right. So that's where you get to. If you don't have a strategy, if you're really not clear on what you want your brand to stand for, if you're just trying to go out there with that shotgun approach, you run out of money and time very, very quickly. And it's frustrating and it's exhausting. And it's why most entrepreneurs give up, especially with their marketing, is because they pay all this money or they spend all this time and it doesn't work. So they spend all this money on ClickFunnels, like you're saying, and they build these amazing sites, but they're not prepared to figure out their strategy for driving traffic. So, and they spend, what I think makes me cringe the most is when I hear people who've spent $20,000, $30,000 building a website and funnels and all this stuff, but they haven't actually figured out what they're trying to achieve, who their audience is, and why they're different, what their point of difference is, what their brand means, none of that. And they're just going, oh, somebody will buy it, and off they go. So, don't try to be everything to everyone. Get really clear. It's that whole, it's about picking your lane, I guess, isn't it, Matt? It's about deciding this is what you want to be good at. And as a marketer or somebody who is an expert in what you do, even there, you have to be careful to say, look, we do it with the Audacious Agency. We don't build websites for people. We don't do their sales funnels. We don't write their sales copy. There's other people who do that. What we do is we help you clarify your brand, get really clear and package together what makes you so different and why someone should come to you. We then help you turn that into programs and books and awards and media coverage and all these other things to get you out there and get you seen and known. But yeah, we won't do all the other things, because what's the point in trying to be everything to everyone? You're better off, like you said about, Disney, they know what they're good at and they just do that so well.
Yep. And because I come from a world of photography and videography,
Yes.
I see that literally all the time. And I feel like
weddings, I'll do corporate, I'll do food, I'll do bar mitzvahs, yeah, whatever, I'll show up. Yeah.
Yep. And even more so, even a further leap in the most recent years, as cameras like DSLR cameras they're merging with video. And my main camera is a DSLR camera that I use for video. That's how good they are. But
yes.
So many people come in, they're like, well, I have a camera and I enjoy photography. Video is not that much different. I know how to press record. And yeah, in their websites, like, I shoot weddings and engagements and events, and I shoot wedding promo videos and hype videos. And it's like, no, you don't. Like, you probably don't do all of those well. And what I see is the more experienced people get, like you said, they find that niche. They start niching down, and they get really good at one thing and cut out the rest of everything else.
Yeah, but it is hard to do. And there's a reason why that, as an entrepreneur, and this is a bit of research that I've done as well, entrepreneurial brain is quite different to the normal brain. So, that fear factor we were talking about, throwing yourself out of airplanes and doing crazy, risky stuff. Entrepreneurs they've taken control of the fear center of their brain. So if you think back, Matt, to when you first started in your own business, you're starting out, you're doing video, you're doing all those sorts of things, your brain was probably saying to you, you're crazy. Where are you going to get the money from? You need to pay the mortgage. There's all this pressure. Don't do it. You're mad. And your brain basically was trying to keep you safe. And that's the amygdala, the fear center of your brain doing that. And you basically overpowered, you've got a superpower. You've overpowered your own fear center and said, I know it's going to be dangerous. I know it's going to be risky, but I'm going to do it anyway, right? Yeah. So you've got this superpower. The trouble with having a superhuman brain, though, is that you've always got the kryptonite. And the kryptonite for an entrepreneur is bright, shiny objectitis. And, it's that I don't have this fear of failure as much as I used to now. And now I'm seeing all these opportunities everywhere. And I've had this idea in the shower this morning. And last week, somebody said I should be doing this. And all of a sudden, you're all over the place. And you get that FOMO, that fear of missing out, which means, you slip into that, I've got to do everything for everyone and, all that sort of stuff. I need money. I'll go and do anything in my business to do that. And as you say, it takes time. And all of us fall into that trap. I was the same. It took me 4 years to figure out my brand. 4 years is a long time.
Yeah. In entrepreneur years, if I think back to what I was doing 4 years ago, it's completely different. But it takes a long time to kind of niche down. And once you figure out your unique, that hook that you have, like you guys helping them get awards and get their books and all that kind of stuff, like once you have that hook that is honestly uncommon. Like, I don't see a lot of agencies like yours personally. Like, I see a lot of photographers, again, because there's a low bar for that. But when you get to your level and you're like, hey, we're going to help you get found by this, and like, that you can deliver on that. That's, I feel like a new realm of marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, actually, I was talking to someone about it the other day. I think we overestimate what we can get done in the short term as well, and underestimate the long term, right? So when you are open to all those different things and trying to be everything to everyone, you try, unfortunately, your day is never long enough. You can never get enough done. Whereas the minute you go, actually, I'm just going to have this one lane. This is just what I'm going to do. All of a sudden, all this distraction goes away and you can really focus on what's important to you and to your business. You actually become better at what you're doing because you've focused and you've told your brain to ignore. It's exactly what I was talking about before. It filters out the stuff that's not important.
Yes.
It's called reticular activation, Matt. I don't know if you've ever heard of reticular activation before.
No,
so listeners, if you're driving, don't stop and whatever, or stop and write it down or whatever, but reticular activation, it's a bit like this. So was there ever, Matt, a time where you decided there was a particular make or model of car that you decided, I really want one of those?
Yes.
Yeah. What was it?
I really want a BMW i8.
Great. So the minute that you've decided that, have you now noticed there's lots of those cars around the place and you're seeing the BMW ads and you're noticing that brand a little bit more?
Oh, every time I see one, I like, tap my wife on the shoulder. Look at that. Look at that.
That's my dream car. Yeah.
Yep.
Now, they were always there, right? But until
Yeah.
you told your brain that it was important to you, it dismissed it, didn't even notice that it was there. So reticular activation is activating your brain to think about a certain thing so that it brings it to your attention. So if you can figure that out with your brand, right? That the minute someone is looking for the best wedding photographer or the best promo video guy or whatever it is, or the best editor for online program videos, they find you because your brand stands out. It's been there consistently. Same thing McDonald's do. Yeah, it's got the recognition factor. You've got a consistent message. You've got lots of respect because you've won awards for what you do, or you've got these great credentials. You've got lots of testimonials, and you've got a great reputation in the marketplace. So if you can build those things, then it's a no-brainer. So that when your ideal client is at the right time for you, they see you straight away.
That's awesome. And that consistency, that's something I'm working on right now, because whenever I started this podcast part selfishly, because whenever I don't have something like this that I'm putting out on a regular basis, my consistency goes out the window.
Yeah.
Like because I don't have any accountability. I don't have anybody like, hey, Matt Pete goes live with his podcast every Wednesday. Like, it's not there. So I just don't do it. So that reputation, like you said, it doesn't build up because I'm just not there. So I was like, you know what? I'm starting a marketing brand so I can help people grow their businesses. I already have a few clients that I help with that, but it's like, if I want to teach people how to market, then I need to do the core element, which I think of marketing is being consistent.
Consistent, yeah. It's probably one of the hardest things, that accountability and consistency. I love what you say, though. If you can say, I'm going to do this monthly, or I'm going to do this weekly. I know we've been running something called the Weekly Rocket for about the last 2 years, which is it's a weekly email that goes out. It's got 5 to 10 opportunities for people to get in the media or become a speaker or get on a podcast. So that goes out to our database every Wednesday. But when I first thought of that one, Matt, I was going to call it the Daily Rocket until I realized I was insane and I would never be able to do it on a daily basis. So it became the Weekly Rocket. And that's been something we've been able to maintain every week, every Wednesday, without missing a day, including Christmas, Easter, whatever, whenever it falls. We've had the Weekly Rocket go out. We haven't missed a week in 2 years. But it is that point of, I'm going to do this. And I guess even Gary Vee talks about it, doesn't he? Was when he first started his podcasts, no one was listening. He had like 2 people and their dog, right? But he kept doing it. So for the 2 listeners that we have today, it's about just keeping on and building that, having that self-belief that you've got something of value, that you're doing something extraordinary, that you've got something unique that people need, and continuing with it and making sure that you go, right, I'm not just going to have a podcast or write a book. I'm going to write a series of books, or I'm going to have a podcast that goes out every week on a Tuesday, or whatever it is. Set yourself those goals, because you're right, Pete, you've got to be your own best cheer squad, right? No one else is going to do it for you. You're going to have to support yourself with what you're doing. Yeah.
And I mean, that consistency, like you said, and having that accountability built into that with your people. And like you said, the 2 followers, like my wife was really concerned when I started the podcast. She's like, how are you going to grow it? Like, all that kind of stuff. She was concerned basically without directly saying it, like, what are you going to do if nobody listens? And I told her, I was like, I'm not in this for the short game. For me, like Russell Brunson over ClickFunnels, he always says you got to throw out hooks after hooks after hooks and just keep throwing out hooks to see what lands. It's like, I'm not going to launch a podcast and get 50,000 downloads the first month. That's just not going to happen unless you're like a celebrity already, or you got like tens of thousands of dollars to throw at advertisement and production value and everything. Like, I'm learning as I go. There are things that I mess up on, like our call today with that false start. I had, for everybody listening and watching, we had to start over. It's partially why I was laughing at the beginning, because my Zoom wasn't recording correctly. So I like started for like 10 seconds. I had to stop. I'm still learning and still growing. So like, I'm in it for the long haul, and having that consistency and putting stuff out, maybe in 100 episodes, somebody comes back to this episode and is listening, like, wow. So, okay, good. He didn't have it figured out, when he was starting out. And that's
absolutely. And that's such a core message, Matt, because too many people, I think, wait till it's perfect.
Oh yeah.
Everything has to be perfect before I launch. There's no such thing as perfect. It's just not going to happen. So get over that and just get on with it.
Absolutely. I mean, this is my second podcast that I've had. The first one, I love to tell the story of how that one started because I had wanted a podcast for like 2 years before that. And same way you said, I wanted it to be perfect. So I was like always in this thinking phase of like, oh, I could do this or I could do that. Or when I get to this size, literally never launched. So one day I was a photography podcast, the business side of photography. And I literally called up one guy or Facebook messaged him, somebody I looked up to in the photography world that like I had no right to ask for his time. Like he makes a lot of money, is really popular. I reached out to him, was like, hey, do you want to be on my podcast? He's like, sure. How's Thursday? And this was on Monday. So, so that Thursday I started a podcast.
Brilliant.
So
what a great way to do it. That's awesome.
I forced it, it's like, I know for me, it's like, if I don't have that external pressure, that expectation, that accountability, I'm really bad about it. So my thing is like, I just have to get that MVP, that minimum viable product, get it out the door. That way I can just grow it from there and scale it.
Yeah, absolutely. Spending too much time, as you say, navel gazing and thinking about things. I getting it out there and testing it. MVP is so important. And again, I see lots of people build lots of online programs or write books or do all sorts of things. And my first question is, well, who's going to buy that? And I don't know, somebody, especially with books. This first question I ask, who's your reader? Who do you want to read this book? Oh, I don't know. I'm just writing a story about my life. Okay, but who do you want to read it? What impact do you want to have? So it's the most important question. What's your minimal viable product?
Yeah. And that's, again, I hate to keep going back to Russell Brunson and his stuff. I just consume a lot of his content, but he talks about how people get in there and build funnels and expect it to make money because they always see the success stories. It's like, okay, well, what's your traffic strategy? And it's like, I don't know. It's like, you can build a website, doesn't mean you're going to sell anything. Like you have to have a way to get traffic.
Absolutely. Well, we've just launched a new online program with another partner, actually, which has been good fun, around helping people with their online brands. So there's been a huge move, of course, thanks to COVID and what's going on with people buying online. Therefore, lots of people getting into creating online businesses, and they don't understand how to create an online brand. So we've created a whole program for doing that. We've already sold 15 clients into that program. The program isn't finished yet. Wow. We haven't even finished building the platform. So that's the way you've got to do it. Go out there and find your market, sell it, see if you've got buyers, and then build it.
That's cool. What's the program called, if you don't mind me asking?
It's called Brand Crafting.
Brand Crafting.
Yeah, brandcrafting.co is the address for it, which is really awesome. So that's in launch phase at the moment. So yeah, but that's the secret, is with all of these things, spot a problem. What's the problem in the marketplace that you can solve? How can you resolve that in a way that people want it? Remember the whole Betamax and VHS story? Beta was a better product, but VHS won because it was an easier product to use, right? So find the problem, but how are you going to resolve it in a way that people actually want it to be resolved? What's the easiest and best or cheapest or most reliable or whatever it is? What's the niche you can find? And then paint a picture of the outcome. It's really got to be important. And I think this is the big thing a lot of people miss with their marketing, is unless you can sell an outcome, a transformation, taking someone from here to here, which Russell Brunson does really well, unless you can sell by getting the human brain to buy in, to already get engaged and go, I want that, then you're really going to struggle. So I call it being a pro, Matt, PRO. Problem, resolution, outcome. And when you're working with humans, which is what we've all forgotten, I think, when you're talking about, I've got ClickFunnels and I've got TikTok and I've got Insta and I've got all these technologies, which is great, but you're still dealing with human beings, and people buy from people, right? So you've got to interact with their brains. You've got to get through their brain, through all this noise that's happening, by really being clear on what's in it for them, the with them. So problem, resolution, outcome is the way I tend to look at people's branding. What's the problem you solve? How do you resolve it in a unique way? And what's the outcome you deliver? And then when they talk about their marketing, we're constantly talking about, okay, is this painting a picture of the outcome? Is this telling people what they're going to get out of it? Because our brains work incredibly fast, Matt. In fact, let's have some fun, shall we, with your listeners? Let's play a game and let's just explain to you exactly how fast your brain works and the neurobranding side of things. So I'm going to give you 2 words to think about, and I want you to concentrate on those words. And then afterwards, I'm going to ask you some questions about them, okay?
All right.
you ready? The 2 words I want you to think about, and listeners, if you're driving along, you can do this while you're driving, so it's all good and safe. The 2 words are bacon and eggs. So thinking about bacon and eggs. So Matt, what was the image the in your brain that you saw when I gave you those words?
Breakfast, bacon and eggs.
Okay, bacon and eggs. And how were the eggs cooked?
Over easy.
Oh, nice. And were they on a plate? Where were you? Is it anywhere in particular?
They were on a plate at my house.
In your house. Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. So great. So some people see fried eggs, some people see scrambled, some people are out at a restaurant somewhere, some people see a pig and a chicken, which is the origin story. Did I even ask you anything about how they were cooked or I didn't do anything, did I? I just gave you the words.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And in milliseconds, your brain had painted a picture of the outcome. So that's how fast the human brain works. So if you are doing marketing and you're not solving a problem, you're not giving people a picture of the outcome, if you're not showing them what life will be like once they've used your service or your product, then they're going to paint their own picture. And it might not be what you want your brand to be known for in the marketplace. So you've got to get really clear on these things. How do you want your brand to make people feel? You know, Maya Angelou said it the best, didn't she? She said, people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. So you've got to paint the picture. You've got to become really close to your ideal client and figure out what do they want, what do they need, how do they feel, you know, what can you deliver to them that's going to make them go, right, wow, fantastic, give it to, here, have my money, you know, take my wallet, I want what you've got. So yeah, absolutely.
Oh man, there's so much good stuff. And I love that, paint a picture of an outcome and sell the outcome, you know, because so many people, myself included, don't do that. We, like you said, we come up with this idea of like, oh, it'd be cool to write a book about this or create a course based on this. And it's like, start with the outcome. It's like, hey, who are you selling it to? What's their problem? What are you going to help them solve? And then create it around that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just normal. I mean, everybody does it. We talk more about how we do things. And we know everything about, like, you know, everything about your photography business. You know about the equipment that you need and the setup and the lighting and everything else. And you can talk forever about that, but it's not usual for you to talk about how does it feel for somebody. So do you help them be their best you in front of the camera, to not be afraid? Do you help people tell their story better on video and relax? Do you put them in a location that makes them feel at home or comfortable? So you got to think about what's in it for them, not just how the process is going to roll out.
Absolutely. So Lauren, if you were to start marketing for a new business today, you had $1,000 in your budget, how would you spend that to get some more clients?
$1,000 is not a lot of budget, is it?
Not at all.
Yeah. First thing I would be doing is, start working on your strategy first. Who's your ideal client? What is it that they want? And what can you give them that makes them go, wow, surprise and delight them and go, this is something better than I've ever heard before. Take my money. So I think I would probably spend $1,000 on the research and the strategy, because you can actually do a hell of a lot of free marketing. There's a huge amount of free marketing. You can get influencers, you can get people to do reviews, you can do word of mouth marketing, you can do partnerships, alignments, affiliations, all sorts of things. I've got loads of people who say to us all the time, hey, do you have affiliations? Absolutely, we do. So, can you figure out exactly who your ideal client is, your target avatar, get really clear on them, and then do what I call building a cascade of influence. Go out to all the key opinion leaders that your ideal audience is looking for. Who do they listen to? Is it Russell Brunson? Do they fly on Virgin? Do they drink Coca-Cola? All the different brands that they interact with. Then how can you reach those brands? How can you reach, if you've got, say for example, your ideal client is a mum of two who's looking for some really awesome fashion products that she needs, right? So who are the people that she talks to? She probably goes to the gym. She might do yoga. She probably drinks wine. She does the school run. She probably does dry cleaning. She may have a dog. You really think about all these things in her life. Who else could you be talking to? Her real estate agent, her people who sell her cleaning services, or holidays or cars. Who else could you be talking to that interacts with your ideal client? and say, hey, look, can we team up on this? You've got a database, I've got a database, let's do something together. So yeah, I would spend my $1,000 on figuring out my strategy, my message and my audience, and then go and start looking at some collaborations.
So I love that answer because it's not typical. Most people, are going to throw it at ads or building their website or whatever. So you say spend $1,000 on research and strategy. Why does that cost money? Like, where are you spending that money?
Yeah, the lesson is it's much harder to do it for yourself. And the whole point is it took me 4 years to create my personal brand, right? 4 years. I can create somebody else's personal brand in about 6 weeks. Wow. So that's my program. It's called Maximum Velocity, and I coach people through that. So why is it easier for me to do it for somebody else? Because I've got the luxury of standing on the outside of their business and their brand and looking in. When you're in the middle of it, when you are right in the middle and you've got to deal with, with the business, you've got to deal with all the hows and the wherefores and the how am I going to actually do it and the process and the procedure. Then I've got to think about the marketing, and then I've got to think about the website and the funnels. And it's too much going on in your brain. I'd be spending $1,000 on a really, really good marketing strategist or brand coach to go, right, here's $1,000. Please do all of this for me. Package my brand properly, get my message right, figure out my audience, do all those sorts of, if you can get someone for $1,000 to do that, then awesome. You might have to cut a few deals and take them sailing or something, buy them a few vodkas. But get that bit done. Even if it's $1,000 on a course to do it, learn about strategy, because I was in advertising and in the advertising world, working with brands right back since the 1990s, well before the internet. So, I know the traditional basic way of creating brand awareness. Back in the day, we didn't have the internet. We had TV, radio, billboards, bit of press, maybe some outdoor, maybe a little bit of ambient coming in, but there was no internet, there was no websites. So you had to think about, how do we create awareness for people? Admittedly, back then, of course, there was less noise. So your ability to stand out was a little bit easier, but it was blimmin' expensive. So, compared to today, you can create your own website and get yourself out there on a shoestring budget today. You can create your own podcast very quickly. You can get yourself out into the media. So it's a lot easier from a budgeting point of view today than it used to be. But the big challenge is you've got lots of noise because it's cheaper to do. Everybody's doing it, right? Yep. So the difference you've got to think about is what hasn't changed. So we've got all these different media platforms, loads of different channels, lots of different ways. It's now interactive. We can get people coming back at us, which is awesome. We could never do that years ago. Direct marketing was probably the closest. But yeah, we used to send stuff out in the mail to people, not on email. It wasn't instant. It used to take days and weeks to get responses, and people used to fill out coupons and send them back, so now you can get that response and you can get that happening much, much faster, but the basics are the same. The human behavior, the human decision-making process, the buying process, the way the brain works, it's the same. It hasn't changed. So you've got to go back to, what am I trying to achieve? Who is it for? What's the problem I solve? And what am I going to deliver? What's the WIFM, the what's in it for me that I can put into my marketing that is actually going to get results? Otherwise you end up back with that WAFDAM situation, wasting your time and money.
What's in it for me? I love that. And honestly, I love that you're coming from it with the experience of pre-internet, because I feel like so many people come
Pretty old. It's not good, Matt.
but it's so valuable, and it's why you're so good at what you do. It's because people today come into this world. And again, I came into it with this notion, and I was taught this by other people. It's like, you got to run some Facebook ads, run some Instagram ads, that kind of thing. And it's like, I know nothing, when I started my business, I know nothing about running ads and communicating and, how to stand out to people and stuff. But they're like, just run Facebook ads. And it was a huge waste of money for the most part, until I started to kind of get a grasp on what was marketing and what that was, and like how to talk to people and how to communicate. Like, that's the start, not running ads. And people, they get started. Like you said, it's so easy today to start a podcast and get out there really quick and all that kind of stuff. And it's easy, but that's part of the problem, is people just think, all I got to do is start a podcast and then my business is going to take off.
Magic, overnight success. Yeah,
exactly. And that's like, baby step one in that process?
Yeah, Matt, it's interesting. The way I explain it, I grew up in the bush in New Zealand. So in the back of nowhere, a little place called Hunua, I think there were about probably not even 5,000 people in that town. Went to school on the school bus, played in the forest, did all the sort of building, what we used to call bivouacs. Used to build these little places and go and hide and seek and all that sort of stuff. And we used to play in the bush all the time, but we had the right tools. We never used to get lost. We used to get temporarily misplaced, was what we used to call it. But we used to have these tools. We had maps and compasses, right? So I was a Girl Guide. I did orienteering. I hated the running part, but I liked the map and compass bit. But so I equate that to branding and marketing. So on their own, if you're lost, right, and you've got no idea about marketing, a map is totally useless because a map just shows you where everything is, right? But if you don't know where you are on that map, you might as well light a fire with it. It's pointless. A compass is similar. On its own, all it does is points it north. But if you don't know where you are again, you don't know what direction to go in, it's totally useless to you. You might as well throw it away. But the minute you put the two of those things together, right? And if you've ever done orienteering, anyone who's listening will understand this. You put the map down, you get the compass, you put it around the right way, you get it aligned with north. You can now look at the map and go, right, we came in through, this is where we left the car, right? This is where we came in. Here's the car park. We're in this direction. We need to go that way to get safe, right? So very quickly, you can figure out where you are and what direction you've got to go in. Now, in my mind, those two things are branding and marketing. Your brand is your compass. It's your true north, right? It's the thing that's going to keep you consistent. Your passion, your skills, your expertise, your unique process, the transformation that you give people, package that together as the true north of your brand, and it'll keep you on north rather than being distracted in this bright, shiny objectitis. Then when you use your map becomes marketing action plan. Right? That's what MAP stands for. So now you know where my customers are, where my competitors are, what the channels are that I could use, how I'm going to go about, how I'm going to reach them, what I'm going to do. So if you can put those two things together, start off with your compass, get really, really clear on what you want to be known for in the marketplace, what your superpowers are, what your niche is, pick your lane, get really clear on that. And then you can apply your marketing. And it works much, much faster and much more effectively and efficiently if you can figure that out first.
Wow, there's so much good stuff in there. I love that analogy of the map and the compass to branding and marketing. That's, as you were saying it, I was like, that makes total sense. I love that. So, Lauren, tell me a story of a time where you made your biggest marketing mistake.
Oh my goodness, there's been many. I think probably when I first launched. So I've been really lucky that I love speaking. As you can tell, I can talk underwater with a mouthful of marbles, allegedly. But I love speaking, and I've been on stage. I've been paid to be a speaker, but it's something I've always wanted to do professionally. So I'm just really getting into it properly now. But when I first started out with my brand here in Australia, I moved from New Zealand to Australia about 11 years ago. I decided I would launch this brand, and I called it the Ultimate Business Propeller. And it was a great name. People loved it, but I went whole hog into Top Gun. Top Gun, Tom Cruise was my favorite movie of all time. I had, these Air Force looking wings on the logo. Everything was about, don't crash and burn with your business, and you want to fly high, and you want to do all these sorts of things. And I started to launch it, right? I then had a coach who said to me, "That's a lovely brand." He said, "So you were in the Air Force?" And I went, "No." He said, "So you pilot or so you fly plane?" No, I don't know. Once when I was a kid, I maybe thought about being an air hostess as a career, but no interest in being in the air at all. So how does that fit with your brand? Was the first question that he asked me. How is that congruent? How does that align? And I went, well, it really doesn't. So I had to completely close all of my brand down and start from scratch. I made probably the rookie error that most people make, and I'm a branding specialist. So, that's just ironic, really, isn't it? But yeah, so I got all excited about the creative and the marketing and how I was going to go on stage dressed up as Tom Cruise with all the flight gear on and all, the whole hog. I was all in, and it wouldn't make any sense, So yeah, so I had to learn myself the hard way Personal branding is all about aligning your expertise, the stuff you do with ease that other people find difficult. That's why they call it expertise, right? Aligning that with your brand. So with the Audacious Agency, it's easy. Both myself and my business partner are totally audacious. We do the stuff for a living. She's a stand-up comedian. I go and jump out of airplanes, do all sorts of crazy stuff. So we are audacious. That's the way that we live. We're bold and we're cheeky and we're sassy, and that's the way it is. So we have no problem living up to that brand. So I guess that was the biggest mistake I ever made, was getting my own brand wrong.
Oh man. And that's an important lesson. I have something similar to that, but on a much smaller scale with my first podcast, the logo work at the beginning. Like I literally had a buddy one time, we were hanging out in Chicago after a conference, and I told him I was launching a podcast. He got all excited. He's like, dude, what is it? Show me like the artwork and everything. I showed it to him. He's like, this is bad. I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, he's one of my best buddies. And like, I love him because he's not afraid to hurt your feelings. He's one of those people. Like,
no filter. I love it.
Exactly. But he'll tell you how it is. He's like, let me see your phone. He's like, I was like, okay. And like had my image logo pulled up on it. And he's like, come with me. And he literally, we're on a rooftop bar in Chicago, took me to random people on the bar, just hanging out, doing their own thing, having their own drinks. They're like, what do you think of when you see this logo? And I was like, yeah, like not one of them said what I was going for. It was just completely wrong, but it's like that feedback.
By fire, isn't it? That's
it
like,
really was
rubbish. Yeah, nice.
It really was. But yeah, I mean, getting that branding on point. But I mean, and now you had the wings on there and everything, and now you're jumping out of planes. So I mean,
there is something a bit strange and ironic about it.
It's just foreshadowing. That's all.
Yeah, that's all it is.
So what's your favorite marketing tool?
That's a good question. My favorite marketing tool, I think, is a website called answerthepublic.com. Have you heard of that one?
I have heard of that one.
So I love this because A, it's a cool site, but B, if you really want to do some very quick research into what people are searching for online at the moment in terms of your brand or your product or your service, you can go to Answer the Public and type in, I don't know, lawn mowing or pet collars or dog food or whatever you want. And it'll tell you the key words and phrases that people are using to search for that online. What are they asking about that particular thing? So it really helps you understand the problem that they have, what they're looking for, what keywords you can use in your marketing, what you should be focusing on when you're putting on a landing page or a funnel, because you want to answer people's problems. You want to get in there and go, hey, you've got this problem, I can solve it for you. So if you're saying, let's go back to one of those dog collars, for example, you're saying ours are the most durable dog collars, they won't fall apart. But the biggest problem that people have, thanks to Answer the Public, is that they don't fit properly. Then you've got a disalignment there. So you need to figure out what the market wants. And Answer the Public's a really quick way of doing it.
I need to use that resource more because I've heard of it, but like I would just went on as you were talking about, like just typed in marketing because that's what this podcast is about. And it's like how marketing and sales work together, how marketing influences consumer behavior, how marketing is changing. Like those are all great topics for like Facebook Lives and blog posts and everything. Like
absolutely. So if you are struggling for content, just go to Answer the Public and it'll give you a whole list of stuff you can talk about.
That is a great resource and it's free because I was just on there and just it's like GoDaddy where you're finding URLs. You just literally go in there as a search bar and you just type in what you're looking for.
Yeah, I think you can do 2 or 5 or something searches before it goes, hey, get off or pay us.
Do you know how much it costs after that? Let me see.
I don't know. I've never used it that much to know. There you go.
I'm gonna have to look that up because that's kind of cool. I like that resource.
It's a great research.
Yeah, it's super quick. That's awesome, and it gives you like this big circle grid, and it's like a ton of questions, a lot of like ton of stuff in their content. Like it'd take me just that one search. The reason they only give you 2 or 3 searches because that one search alone, I've got like 30 different podcast ideas and blog posts.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, it's especially good if you're coming up with a product or a service that you want to market and you're not sure if there's a need for it. So go on there and go, weight loss programs or whatever it is that you're designing and just see what people are asking about it. And you can go, great. So they're asking which is the best or the fastest or loses the most weight or whatever. Then you go, right, my program is going to be all about that. Either answering that question or telling them actually there's no fast way or whatever it is.
Cool. That's awesome. I'm going to be diving into that in a little bit to answer some of my own questions that I've got.
Brilliant.
So, Lauren, if you could go back in time to when you first started your marketing and branding story and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
I think probably not to worry about how many people would be out there that'll buy my services. Because I think when you do start to find your lane, to niche down and go, okay, this is what I want to do. I started as a personal branding expert well before personal branding was even a thing. So, people, when I said I'm a personal branding specialist, they didn't know what that was. So, I had to explain to them it's about self-promotion, it's about being Googleicious, it's about, being found online, standing out as being the expert. People understand personal branding a bit more now. But I think back then, especially if you're leading edge, if you're starting something that's a little bit fresh, a little bit different, not to panic quite so much about, will there be enough people for this? I think if you've done your research and you know that there's a problem that you can solve and that you do it in a unique way that you can own and you can align your brand with, you've got something awesome, something really valuable. It's just going to take time. And I say this to people, it takes 3 years to create a personal brand to the point where you've got people asking you to come on their podcasts and write books with them and work with them. So, I didn't start charging people, thousands of dollars for my services from day one. It just doesn't happen, right? You've got to build that credibility in the marketplace.
That's good. And the fact you put a time limit on it, so that way people out there can be realistic about it. And they're not, like you said, it's not just like, hey, let's go create a podcast and start charging people thousands of dollars. Like, I'm in one podcasting group and a guy posted the other day, he's like, I'm starting a podcast. What's a good platform that I can use to get 50,000 downloads in the first year? And it's like, it has very, very little to do with what platform you're on for your host.
What you should be using is Gary Vaynerchuk. That's what you should be using. That's the platform, So yeah.
Absolutely. And like you said, use
Folio. Go find one of those guys. Yeah.
Exactly. Get those on your podcast, then maybe. All right. Awesome. Lauren. I really appreciate everything you've had to say today. It's been absolutely amazing. But what's the best way for people to follow you and see some more of your content?
Yeah, awesome. We have a really cool Facebook group actually called Rocket Launch Your Business. So if you're on Facebook, go and type in Rocket Launch Your Business. There's a couple of thousand global entrepreneurs in there. Myself and Annette and Nick, we're all in there all the time and doing amazing things and helping people out. We've got some good themes. And you can post in there your blogs and your podcasts and things like that so that we can help spread the word about them, but also give you feedback if you want it on whether you think your image sucks for your podcast. We won't be quite as mean as your mate. I think that was really horrible, but still.
I needed it.
It's good to have mates like that. Absolutely. They save you all the time. But yeah, that's a great group, Rocket Launch Your Business on Facebook, but obviously the Audacious Agency. Just go and check out our website and it is theaudaciousagency.com. And there's lots of tools and resources and all sorts of stuff on there as well.
Awesome. Everybody out there listening, watching, Rocket Launch Your Business Facebook group on there. Check that out. This has been an absolutely amazing interview. Thank you again, Lauren. I really appreciate you being on here.
We squeezed in a lot, didn't we? We got a lot into that time.
We did. Awesome. So I'm excited to share this with everybody. Everybody out there listening, you're watching along. If you like this, share it with somebody. That always helps. I absolutely love to see it too. Tag me in it because I love to comment and have conversations about it and see what helps people and what they're getting out of it. But for everybody out there listening, I hope this was as inspiring for you as it was for me. Keep working hard, keep pushing forward, and remember that marketing matters.